My husband, who is 38 years old, and I are fairly recently married, having tied the knot earlier this year. We had a nasty fight over the weekend, which forced us to end our camping trip early. I guess I'm asking for perspective or validation on it from outsiders, and I'm kind of venting too. My best friend lives in another state, and I don't see her often. My husband hasn't spent much time with her, only on 2 occasions over the course of a day or 2. So they don't know one another well. She has little kids, and so on. When I was visiting her recently, she was sitting next to me and overheard him call her a nickname on the call that she didn't like. She asked me to speak to him about it, to let him know that she didn't like the nickname. I did that the same night before ending the call, letting him know that she doesn't like it. It's a nickname that he and I had been using just between us, but since I see her rarely, it hadn't come up yet. It's cute, nothing derogatory. I mostly think she just doesn't like nicknames or things that are too cutesy. It came up again this past Friday. I spent all day getting our car packed for a camping weekend. Literally all of the gear, food, snacks, and so on. So I had a long day, and maybe I was cranky. I was off work all week and volunteered to pack everything. On the drive out to the site, he uses the nickname, and I bring up again that she didn't like it and that she asked me to let him know. We get into a discussion about it for about 30 minutes, during which he says things such as, "I'm going to try it out around her anyway, just once, to see how it goes, and I want to hear from her why she doesn't like it." He said he's curious about why she doesn't like it and wants to broach it with her for that reason. I start feeling myself get pretty angry that he can't respect this simple request, and the idea of him being disrespectful to her makes me feel incredibly upset. He said my request wasn't clear, so we definitely disagree on that. I'm quiet for the next 30 minutes in the car and don't really want to talk to him. I'm just sitting and stewing in how the conversation went. After some time, he mentions that he can tell I'm upset, and we get back into it. I start by letting him know I'm really upset about the conversation earlier. We argue for another hour and 15 minutes until we reach our site. I tell him a lot of things during it, that it would be inconsiderate and she would find it rude if he asked her why she doesn't like it. He gives an example where he calls her the name to ask her why she doesn't like it. "Hey, nickname, why don't you like nickname?" He then says, "Is she so fragile that I can't have a humorous conversation with her?" because he thinks that is a humorous way to talk to her about it. I found that question insulting. Although he thinks fragility is acceptable, it reads as an insult to me. I told him in the moment that it stung to hear him suggest that. I reminded him how strong I think she is given what she's been through. During this whole argument, I was steaming mad. I kept reminding him that she asked to not be called that. It would be rude to bring it up with her. I don't know if there's some awful memory attached to it. She was heavily bullied in school and has a lot of intimacy trauma from multiple people. Maybe they called her that. I even mentioned that. And he again calls her fragile, or says that she's welcome to just tell him she doesn't want to share why. The next day, he asks that I apologize for those 30 minutes in the car that I was quiet, instead of addressing how he behaved during the argument. How upsetting it was for me to hear him say repeatedly that he was going to still call her the name and wanted to talk to her about it. He says that him calling her the name during a statement to ask her about why she doesn't like it is different from calling her the name. That doesn't make sense to me, but maybe I'm not getting it. It's still saying, "Hey, nickname." To me, that's still using the name, and I told him not to. He did agree at the end of Friday to not use it, but I was so upset about how the argument went. I felt like he wasn't listening to me or trying to understand the request. We didn't really talk for the rest of the day. I told him I didn't want to talk to him, and I think it's fine that I was mad after how he handled such a simple and clear request. We left our trip early, and on the way home he also called me a bunch of things such as coward, that I love to lie, and he said I've never once apologized to him. Definitely not true. He's admitted previously that he's happy with how some of my apologies have gone, stubborn and ridiculous. He did agree at the end of the hours of arguing about it to not call her the name or bring it up with her, but I'm really upset with how he behaved during the argument and how he spoke to me on the drive home. We see a therapist every Sunday morning, and she said that my being quiet after the argument was the main issue over how he behaved. I'm genuinely failing to see it that way. I've since apologized for that time I was quiet when I was upset and let him know I should have told him I needed space instead of stewing. He hasn't apologized for anything. For calling me a coward, he said I am one. For telling me I love to lie, he says it's true. For not respecting the simple boundary, and he's still angry at me. He wants me to apologize for getting angry instead of just having a rational discussion. Now for an update. He sent me some nice-ish texts just a bit ago. You have a lot of anger. Even if I was ignoring you, even if I was pressing an issue, you don't need to respond with anger. I hope you find a way to start looking at yourself, looking at how you can respond with more love and curiosity and simple communication rather than anger. I will totally try to hear the ask better. I'm sorry for my part in not identifying the underlying asks sooner. It's understandable that it was unpleasant for you because being ignored repeatedly would bother anyone. In the future, I'll try to see the ask you're making, even if I don't think I've heard the specific ask. I'll do more. Is this what you're asking for? I love you. I'm also sorry for any names I called you. We agreed that name calling isn't okay. I'll continue to try to honor that agreement. I wasn't ever arguing with you. You made it an argument. I was just trying to chat with you. I think for it to be bullying, it has to be persistent over time. You could choose discussion first. Your ask wasn't clear, getting mad instead of discussing calmly. You've never once apologized for that. You justify your anger. It seems like it's righteous to you. You could choose to embrace the idea that you are the one getting yourself angry, not me getting you angry. He's insistent that I shouldn't get upset about hypotheticals. He's done this before, given me upsetting hypotheticals, and been upset that I'm angry. He's insisting that he said I'm being a coward, which is different from saying I'm a coward and not name-calling. It's still insulting, and he won't own up to it. He's just stating facts. I wrote down what he said as he said it because he does this often. He definitely said I'm a coward for not apologizing. He said, "Seems truth is painful, and sometimes it is relevant to the situation." Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. I'm sorry, but what is wrong with your husband and your therapist? He thinks it's okay to argue with you for almost 2 hours over a simple request like not using a nickname that your friend hates. Is he this argumentative and stubborn over other things? Then he demands an apology from you because you were stuck in a car with him and didn't want to continue arguing. And then on the way home, when you are again trapped in the car, he insults you and calls you names. And he doesn't think he has done anything wrong. How were you supposed to have a rational discussion with someone who couldn't acknowledge that using someone's nickname after being told they don't like it is fine? That someone who doesn't like a nickname is fragile? How was his behavior rational or reasonable? Is he like this often? You are recently married. Do you want to deal with this type of behavior for years to come? Comment 2. Your husband is being a total jerk, and he is verbally and emotionally hurtful. Going to couples therapy with an hurtful partner is not just unproductive, it is dangerous. Therapy assumes that both people are acting in good faith and are invested in addressing the issues in the relationship, which he clearly is not. He's just manipulating the therapist to team up against you. I saw you comment that you are currently pregnant, so unfortunately I would expect this kind of abuse to get worse. Now, for the update. 3 days after the camping trip, I got a text from my best friend asking if I had talked to my husband since the argument. I hadn't. The husband came home from work and immediately tried to lighten the mood with jokes. He was all about the dad humor, but I just didn't have the energy to laugh along. We had a family dinner planned at my parents' house that Saturday. I decided to go, but wasn't sure about bringing him along. I needed to see my family, but I also didn't want to pretend everything was fine when it really wasn't. I talked to my parents about the situation, explaining that things were just awkward between my husband and me. My parents expressed concern and suggested I talk to him before the dinner. I sent him a text asking if we could discuss things before the family dinner. He replied saying he was busy and would talk later, which was just great. During dinner, the atmosphere was so awkward. My parents kept trying to make conversation, and they asked about the camping trip. My husband chimed in with a joke about the trip that fell flat, and it made me uncomfortable. After dinner, we moved to the living room for dessert, and my brother brought up vacation plans. Out of nowhere, my husband made a snarky comment about how their vacation plans might get canceled if they kept arguing. My dad tried to change the topic to sports, but it didn't really work. My husband was quiet for a while, then turned to me and said I was being overly sensitive. My sister, sensing the awkwardness, suggested we play a board game to lighten things up. While playing, my husband made another jab about me being too serious, and I just snapped. I told him to cut it out. He accused me of always overreacting and not letting things go. An uncomfortable silence filled the room as everyone processed what was happening. My mom suggested we all take a break from the game, and we moved to the patio. Outside, my brother shared news about his upcoming baby, which shifted the focus momentarily and was honestly a welcome distraction. The husband excused himself to take a work call, leaving me with my family. During the call, my sister nudged me, suggesting we talk about what was going on. She encouraged me to set boundaries and communicate clearly with my husband, which was something I knew I needed to do. The husband returned from the call, and I decided it was time to confront him about everything. I told him we needed to talk. The discussion escalated again, and he insisted he didn't mean to hurt me. I was done with the excuses. The tension finally reached a breaking point when I said we might need to take time apart. He paused, realizing how serious this was, and suggested we seek help together. I agreed, but made it clear that he needed to take my concerns seriously moving forward. We left the dinner with an unsettled understanding that things needed to change. A week later, we scheduled a couples workshop to work on our communication issues. Mini update. After the couples workshop, we both realized that we needed to be more open and honest with each other. We agreed to have weekly check-ins to discuss any issues before they escalated. I also shared with him how his comments affected me, and he apologized for not understanding sooner. We planned a short getaway to reconnect and have some fun together. Things are definitely better, though we know it will take time and effort to fully heal. Am I the idiot for cutting off my best friend after she tried to kiss my husband? We, a 37-year-old female and a 39-year-old male, have been together for 15 years, married for 12, and we have 4 kids. We've always had a wonderful, loving relationship and have both been amazing partners to each other. My mom is not doing well health-wise, and I flew out to her with our youngest on Friday morning, and we will be flying back tomorrow night. A few hours ago, my best friend called me crying and said that she got into a major fight with her husband after she found out he cheated and asked if she could come over. She had forgotten that I wasn't in town, and I talked to her for a little while and tried to calm her down. I also called my husband explaining the situation and asked if it was okay for my best friend to spend the night in our guest room, and he was fine with it. I took our iPad with me to keep our youngest entertained while at my parents' place. It is logged into my husband's Apple ID email, so his messages and calls show up on it. When I went to put it on charge, I saw tens of messages from my best friend to my husband. I found it strange since they were supposed to be under the same roof, and I knew it was wrong to snoop, but I ended up reading the messages anyway. Long story short, something happened between them. My husband kicked her out, and my best friend wants to keep whatever it is a secret. But my husband says that I deserve to know. I don't know what to do or think now, and I have no one I can talk to about this. What am I supposed to do now? Now for an update. You guys were right. I wanted to have the conversation face to face and waited until I got back a few hours ago. We talked after we had dinner and all the kids went to bed. After my now former friend showered and freshened up, my husband gave her leftovers from dinner, and they talked about her husband and the situation with her husband. And out of nowhere, she tried to sit in his lap and tried kissing him. My husband pushed her off, and she tried again, and he told her that she had to leave. My husband admitted that he was tempted to call me late last night, but didn't want to add more to my plate while I was with my mom, and wanted to physically be there when he told me. I have talked to her since, and she is back at her place and her husband is not there. She has been very apologetic and is saying that she wasn't in the right headspace and made a mistake trying something with my husband and is begging me not to break apart our friendship. To be honest, I feel bad for her, but she knows how much I love my husband and my family, and she was willing to ruin everything, and I can't forgive that or rationalize it. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Her husband cheated. She wanted a revenge encounter. Your husband was under the same roof and you were away, so he seemed like the easy option. He turned her down and kicked her out, which was the right thing to do. The only reason he hasn't told you already is maybe because he doesn't want to ruin your friendship with her, based on something she tried to do when she was in an emotionally fragile state. He sounds like a good guy. What are you supposed to do now? Call your husband. Comment 2. I'd wait to see if he tells you and continue watching those messages. If he doesn't tell you immediately, then state, "You have something to tell me, I'm ready to hear it," and nothing more. Let him believe she told you. Now, for the update. I'm here to give you an update on the whole mess of my husband and my best friend. It's been about a month since all that went down, and honestly, it's been a roller coaster. I spent the last few weeks just trying to focus on my kids and keep things as normal as possible for them. You know how it is, just trying to survive and not let everyone know that my life is falling apart. My best friend reached out to me several times, but I kept my distance. I saw her texts and calls, but I just couldn't bring myself to respond. I know she was probably freaking out, but honestly, I was too. I didn't want to get pulled back into whatever drama she was trying to drag me into. My husband and I had a lot of talks about trust and what happened between them. He promised to be transparent and assured me that nothing else happened after he pushed her away. I wanted to believe him, but a part of me was still like, how can you really know? A couple of weeks ago, I decided it was time to host a family dinner at our house. I thought it would be nice to have everyone together, and honestly, I needed a distraction. So I invited my parents, my brother, and my sister-in-law. My brother and sister-in-law brought their baby, which added a lively atmosphere to the house. I love my niece, so it was nice to have her running around and making everyone smile. We all sat around the table, enjoying a big meal, with laughter filling the room. It felt good to be surrounded by family, even if just for a few hours. During dinner, my mother brought up how important family bonds are. She always goes on about that stuff, but I guess it's nice to hear sometimes. She mentioned how she values friendships and trust among family, and I could feel my husband and I exchanging glances. Then my brother jokingly suggested inviting my best friend to the next family dinner. I felt my stomach drop, and I quickly changed the subject. There was this awkward silence in the room for a second, and I just wanted to crawl under the table. After dinner, I went to the kitchen to clean up, and my husband joined me. He asked if I was okay since I seemed distracted. I just told him I was fine and that I needed to focus on cleaning. While I was washing dishes, I overheard my mother talking to my brother in the living room. I couldn't catch everything they were saying, but I heard my mom mention something about how she hoped my friend was doing okay. I thought I was going to lose it right there. A few days later, my sister-in-law invited us to a birthday party for their baby. I decided to go, thinking it would be a good distraction. At the party, I ran into my best friend who had also been invited. What are the odds? She approached me, trying to act all casual, but I could tell she was nervous. I kept the conversation short, just discussing the baby and how cute she was. But during the party, I noticed my husband and my friend talking closely. They were laughing at something and it made me uneasy. I went outside to get some fresh air and calm my thoughts. My brother followed me outside and asked if I was all right. He could tell something was off, and I guess my fake smile wasn't convincing anyone. He mentioned that he had heard some gossip about my friend. Apparently, people were talking about her behavior at the last family gathering. He said that she was seen getting too close to my husband again, and I felt like someone had punched me in the gut. At that moment, I just knew it was time to confront her directly. I texted her, asking to meet up for coffee, just the two of us. I knew it would be uncomfortable, but I needed to get to the bottom of this. We met at a local cafe, and I went straight to the point. I asked her about the rumors and what was really going on. To my surprise, she admitted that she had feelings for my husband, but she insisted that nothing happened. She said it was just a crush, and she tried to kiss him, but he pushed her away. I told her that I couldn't trust her anymore, and that I needed to cut ties. I stood firm, explaining that the trust was broken beyond repair. She started crying and begging me to reconsider, but I just couldn't do it. I walked away from that meeting feeling like I had made the right decision, but it still hurt. I thought about all the years of friendship we had and how quickly it all came falling apart. I know some people might think I'm being too harsh, but they don't know the whole story. They don't know how much I value trust and loyalty, especially when it comes to family. Right now, I'm just focusing on my kids and trying to move on with my life. It's not easy, but I'm doing my best. Edit. My friend had been part of our lives for many years. Our families spent holidays together, and she was there for major events. I never suspected her of having feelings for my husband. When my brother mentioned rumors, I was shocked. It made me realize she had crossed a line before. I don't know if her husband knows about her feelings for mine. It's a complicated situation. My kids were upset about the friendship ending, but understood why I had to do it. Am I the idiot for calling out my husband's drunken behavior at my best friend's wedding? My main reason for this post is that I have so many emotions. I don't know how to get over this or how to process it. My best friend got married on Saturday, and I was one of her bridesmaids. It was an Indian Sikh wedding, and it had taken 2 years to plan. My best friend has moved 4 hours away in the past year, so we don't see each other as often as we'd like. However, I have been involved in all of the lead up to her big day and have been her support through the thick of it. It was a beautiful day and a once-in-a-lifetime experience, and I was so excited to party the night away. During the day, I fulfilled my bridesmaid duties and helped my friend whenever she needed it, such as toilet breaks and food breaks, as she was busy with her 300-plus guests and all of the traditional rituals the wedding followed. I had a total of 3 alcoholic drinks the whole evening, whereas every time I saw my husband, he was even drunker than before. He ended up drinking 7 pints of lager before switching to gin and lemonade. He had 3 doubles before the final ceremonial act was completed in the evening. He was so drunk he couldn't stand up straight and was swaying all over the place. He must have sensed that I was annoyed, so he kept asking me to tell him what was wrong. I responded by telling him that we would talk about it tomorrow when he had sobered up. He insisted I tell him, and after 20 minutes of constant questioning, I told him that I hadn't felt supported and I didn't like how drunk he was. For context, we have this mutual agreement that whenever we attend a friend's wedding, the one who is closest to the couple getting married has first dibs on drinking. For example, if we attended his friend's wedding, I would expect him to let loose, whereas I would be more reserved to ensure I could drive home the next day and make sure he had a good time. It has always been this way. Once I had confessed how I was feeling, his whole demeanor changed. He is a very calm, laid-back individual, and alcohol usually just makes him silly. However, this time he got aggressive. He was shouting at me to give him the FG car keys, so he could sit there to calm down. I refused, but eventually unlocked it for him and kept the keys in my bag. I was so embarrassed as one of the other bridesmaids saw this all unfold. He has never sworn at me like that before and never acted in that manner. In the end, we had to leave as I was shocked and in tears, and he was too drunk to function. We ended up leaving while all of my best friend's other bridesmaids and close friends continued on until 2 a.m. To make matters worse, before this all unfolded, my friend terribly thanked me for being there for her and said she was so excited for us to celebrate together into the night. My question is, how do I move on from this? I'm feeling so many emotions, from sadness to disappointment and embarrassment. It might sound silly to some, but since we had our child together 3 years ago, we rarely have time together, and I never, ever get to let my hair down. Meanwhile, he has been on lots of stag parties abroad, boys' nights out, etc. I just want him to hurt as much as I am, but I'm not that way inclined. I just wish he wasn't so selfish and put my wants and needs before his own. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. I've been reading your comments, and one stood out. You said that he is a groomsman at his best friend's wedding next month, and you know he will let his hair down once again and have a great time, but you won't drink so that you can make sure he doesn't go too far again. This is how you find out if he has any regrets about ruining your best friend's wedding for you. Why not point out that as he got so drunk at your best friend's wedding and you ended up having to leave early and he shouted at you and embarrassed you in front of your friends, it's actually your turn to enjoy the next wedding. Suggest he fulfill his responsibilities as a groomsman sober. He can be the designated driver and you can let your hair down. He shouldn't have a problem with it. Comment 2. It sounds like the issue isn't the wedding. The issue is that you feel like you haven't had a chance to not be the responsible one for a long time. And you were looking forward to the wedding because you thought this was your chance to finally let loose and be taken care of by him. And perhaps approaching it from that perspective, the one where you just want to have a break from always having to be responsible and taking care of someone, would help your husband realize how burnt out you are. Now for the update. After the wedding, I was still trying to figure out the chaos. Like, seriously, what even happened that night? I was a mess, and every time I thought about it, I felt like I was back in that moment, just cringing all over again. I went to grab my phone, and I saw that my husband had been texting a friend about the whole wedding ordeal. Looking over it, he was downplaying everything, calling me dramatic and saying that every woman in the room would have acted the same way. I was just like, wait, what? My husband was making me look bad to make himself look better? That's low, even for him. The friend ended up messaging me, sharing all the texts. She's not a bad friend, but I was just kind of shocked because she was supporting him and making jokes about how my reaction to his behavior was funny. I couldn't help but feel disrespected, you know? Like, really? You're gonna make fun of me when I'm the one who's in the right? So I decided it was time to confront my husband about it. We had a heated argument at home where he just kept dismissing my feelings. I honestly don't remember everything we said, but it was just the same old act where he acted like what I was feeling was stupid. At that point, I was just like, screw this, I need some air. I went to a local coffee shop to think things over. While I was there, I ran into the friend who shared the texts. She sat down with me, and we started chatting. I was kind of standoffish because I was still hurt and angry about what her and my husband were doing. She opened up about feeling uncomfortable around him too, and that actually surprised me. It was almost like a light bulb went off in my head. Listening to her, I thought, oh my God, wait, maybe this is the way to get through to my husband. I started this little project where I documented all of his behavior. I took notes on how often he drank excessively and what he did while he was drunk. I wasn't trying to sneakily get evidence against him. It was more like a wake-up call for him. A little while later, we went to a family gathering for my niece's birthday. My husband got drunk again and embarrassed me in front of my relatives. Seriously, he could not help himself. He made a scene about wanting to leave early, saying he couldn't handle the noise. I was so annoyed. After the party, I decided to talk to my family about his behavior during dinner at my parents' house. They were really supportive and shared stories of similar experiences with him. I was so thankful. It felt good to know I wasn't alone in this. Then I had an idea. I planned a family dinner for the upcoming holiday and invited my husband, but I didn't tell him what was on the agenda. I prepared a speech to address the situation directly with my family there. I wanted him to understand how his drinking impacted my life. During the holiday dinner, I finally brought up the whole wedding incident in front of my family. Of course, he reacted defensively, claiming I was overreacting. My family backed me up and shared their own observations about his drinking. The atmosphere was awkward, but I just kept going. I revealed that I had documented his behavior over the past few weeks. To my surprise, his mom spoke up first, expressing concern about his drinking and its impact on the family. I mean, wow, I did not see that coming. After the dinner, he stormed out, feeling cornered and embarrassed. I took a deep breath, knowing that we were finally making progress, but it was going to be a long road ahead. A few days later, I got a message from his sister, and she expressed concern about him. She shared that her brother had been struggling with alcohol for a long time, and they were just as worried as I was. This made me feel so relieved, honestly. I wasn't alone in this fight. I decided to organize a family intervention with support from his family. They were on board, and we planned to meet at my house to discuss the issues openly. During the intervention, everyone expressed their concerns to my husband, and he reacted angrily at first. However, as the conversation went on, he slowly began to listen. The atmosphere shifted when he realized the impact of his actions on everyone. It was like a light bulb went off for him. Months later, we attended a family barbecue, and I was shocked at the changes in him. He was engaging with everyone without drinking excessively, and it was so clear that he was committed to making a change. The family ended the day with laughter and a plan for future gatherings, creating a supportive environment. I know we still have a long way to go, but for the first time in a long while, I felt hopeful. Edit. After the intervention, my husband admitted he was an alcoholic. He started attending support group meetings and therapy. His family has been supportive, which has helped immensely. We're still in therapy together, and he's committed to rebuilding trust. Progress is slow but steady, and I'm hopeful for our future. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.